Greetings to all my tech heads out there in the KevTechify Nation, and if you're new here, welcome. In this episode, we're going to look at UDP Overview. We'll be discussing UDP Features, UDP Header and Header Fields, and then finally we'll talk about applications that use UDP. This episode is part of my series on Introduction to Networks for the CCNA. I'm Kevin here at KevTechify. Let's get this adventure started. Here are some features of user datagram protocols, or UDP. First one is data is reconstructed in the order it's received. Data is reconstructed in the order received. What we're talking about here, as the segments come in, we're going to reassemble it in the order it was received. Now, if the data arrives not in the correct sequence, it's going to be reassembled not in the correct sequence. Remember, UDP is used for real-time data, so for streaming data. If one segment arrives out of the order of another segment in a voice conversation, you're talking milliseconds here. If two different milliseconds of a voice conversation was switched, would you actually notice it? Probably not. But if we had to go and repeat it like we would with TCP, you would definitely notice it then. So that's why we use UDP here for our real-time communications. Any segments that are lost in transferring that data from the source to the destination, they're not resent. We're just going to skip them. You're going to have a little flicker in your video stream. You're going to have a little tiny millisecond pause in your voice over IP conversation, but it's going to go, the conversation is going to continue right past that lost segment. There is no session establishment. There is no need to establish that session because we're not acknowledging the data and retransmitting at that point in time. The sender also is not informed about the destination, about what speed it can receive at. It's not informed whether or not it's even available. We just send that data. The UDP header is much simpler than the TCP header. Here we have the UDP header. It's only 8 bytes long. It is a total of 64 bits long. Remember, the TCP header, that was 20 bytes long. Here, this is only 8 bytes. We have the source port and destination port. Once again, that represents what applications it's coming from and going to on our devices. The length field is a 16-bit field that represents the length of the UDP header. And finally, we have that checksum used for error checking in the datagram header. Here we have some applications that use UDP. First, we have the live video or multimedia applications. These are the ones where if we lose data, by the time we retransmit them, it would cause problems with the stream. And so what we're looking at here is voice over IP and video conferencing. That if for some reason a segment or two wasn't delivered, it would just cause a little bit of a hiccup, but the conversation would carry on. That's our voice over IP and our video conferencing. Then we have simple request and reply applications. What we're looking at here is the DNS and DHCP, where it's a process that happens quickly, very simply, and because it happens so quickly and so simply, we don't necessarily need to have TCP and all that overhead happening. Because if it doesn't happen, like DNS or DHCP, we just repeat that process again. And finally, some applications, they actually handle the reliability themselves. They handle the flow control, they handle the error detection, the acknowledgments, the error recovery themselves. What we're talking about here is like SNMP, a simple network management protocol, and TFTP, trivial file transfer protocol. They handle all of that flow control, error detection, acknowledgement, and error recovery by themselves. So they don't need the app or the transport layer to handle it. They don't need need TCP to handle it. That's why they can use UDP at the transport layer, because the applications handle it themselves. It was my pleasure to provide you with this wonderful episode on UDP Overview. If you like this episode and you got value out of it, please click that like button, give a 5-star rating, leave a comment. This all helps me bring you more great content. Please take a minute to subscribe to my channel. All my socials and contact information are on my website, KevTechify.com. There you can find out how to get all these episodes in video and podcast form. In the upper right is my playlist for my series on Introduction to Networks for the CCNA. In the bottom right is one of my favorite videos that I linked just for you. Thank you so much for watching this episode of my series on Introduction to Networks for the CCNA. I'm Kevin. This is KevTechify. I'll see you next time for another great adventure.